All right, guys, it's Tuesday morning. Let's stay positive. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to start with our purpose statement as always, and I will lead us off with the read. Would somebody like to read it this morning? Anybody?
I'll read.
Go ahead, Albert. It's on the screen. Let me put it on the share screen for you.
Thank you.
And it is yours, my friend.
The 17 Club. We forge a brotherhood where no man walks alone. No potential is wasted, and every man is challenged to discover his purpose, develop his gifts, and live a life of significance. Together, we unlock the man, unleash the mission, and change the world.
And change the world. Thank you, Albert. I appreciate you. Knocked off the share. Luis is coming in to join us. So, today is kind of exciting. We get to talk about the longest chapter in the book, Think and Grow Rich, uh, which, by the way, that chapter is not even included in the 12 Keys to Success by Napoleon Hill. I had to Google that. Okay, what chapter is going to mix with this? And actually, the chapter in the 17 Keys that aligns with this chapter is budgeting time and money. So, considering some of the comments I got from some of our friends in the room about getting funding for their projects and that kind of stuff, I love it. Budgeting time and money. When things come true, we got to figure out how to make it all work. Before we get started with that reading, anybody have something they'd like to share? A win or perhaps a challenge that you'd like to share with the group over the last week?
Well, I'll share a win. I put on a sales workshop last week for almost 2 full days, and it was awesome sauce. So it was really, 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 really fun. And the feedback that I've been getting from the workshop was fantastic. And yeah, it felt really, really good to help flex and stretch not only myself but also the people who were inside the workshop. So
Awesome.
there was
Awesome.
yeah, anywhere between 10 and 12 of us at a time, and it was just really, 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 really cool to see all of these frameworks and concepts be able to be grabbed and snagged by people, and to have them see the thing that I've seen for a long time, which is that the sale is really just about understanding influence. And that is applicable whether you're standing in front of a banker, whether you're standing in front of an audience, or whether you're standing in front of your spouse.
Yeah. And you jumped the gun on me, Michael. I was going to ask you, a new sales training program, what could possibly be new? But, it's a matter of perspective, right?
Yep.
It's always a matter of perspective. I grew up in an age of learning how to sell was all about building relationships. And I don't think that's changed at all.
Nope.
If you've got a product that's helpful with other people and you can build good relationships, people will do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And just come from the heart, come from your original purpose, which is to serve others. So, Michael, I was wondering if you had one thing that you would share about the workshop that really stood out amongst everything else that you probably talked about in those 2 days. What would be the most important key point that you would bring up?
So
You
at the
know,
end of the workshop, we went through a number of things, but I I added some neuroscience and neurolinguistic programming sentence structures at the end. And the sheer volume of, like, oh my gosh, that the way that sentence worked, and oh my gosh, those revelations were really, really, really cool. So that and it was interesting to see how people's reacted to sentences that demand of the customer to say what's really going on. So for example, I'll use one example. Most people, you've heard this one before, Frank. You've been in sales forever. So most people have all heard, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're not interested right now, 1 or 10 being like let's go, let's rock and roll. Where do you find yourself right now? And Frank, normally someone would say what?
yeah, maybe a 5 or a 4. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a 6 at best.
So why didn't you say 4?
I didn't want to commit to not being ready.
So when you ask, why didn't they say the lower number, right? Then they tell you what they need.
Interesting.
So if you say, okay, well, why didn't you say that it was a 4? You can say, well, I'm not ready. And I go, okay. Now I know now I understand a belief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of asking, okay, well, what would make it a 7, Frank? And now you're going to come up with all these value-added things that you want,
Sure.
right? That's not valuable to me. That question, and most people go, why aren't they the higher number? They demand why they're not the higher number. But if you say, okay, so why didn't you say 4? Now you're going to start telling me why you want it and what's holding you back.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And again, it's all about strategy. And I'd like to emphasize, it's not necessarily about a script, but it is about giving thought to what are the questions that you're going to ask and why you're asking those questions and getting people to actually what you're doing with questions is you're earning their trust. You're getting them to open up and getting them to feel like, well, okay, wait a minute, maybe this guy or gal is not just like everybody else trying to sell me
Right.
something I don't need, right? So great. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed that. I saw that you put something out there and wasn't able to attend because I was otherwise engaged.
Oh, and you know what, Frank? It was just for my members. It was only
Nice.
paid people, so it wasn't available to the public.
Okay, awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
So if you want to know more about that material, reach out to Michael and he'll be able to tell you how to get involved. All right. Anyone else got a win for this past week?
I have one, Frank, and very interesting way to start this conversation, Michael. So in the military, one of my skill sets was human intelligence, which
Yeah.
meant all things, spies are us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the reads that we have to read is neuro linguistic programming. And I mean, man, does it work? And everything you were just saying, Frank, if someone says yes, do they really mean yes? How can I make them say yes if they're gonna say no? You know, so it's some pretty interesting stuff there. But no, and then a win for me. So I think I told you, gentlemen, I passed up on that one job where I was gonna be a chief of staff for a man that was gonna be traveling a lot. Wasn't a good fit for me because right now I want to be close to my kids and have access to my kids as much as possible. Through that meeting, though, I didn't meet with the gentleman. He passed me off to another guy that kind of wants the same thing, but remote. So that means I can stick with my kids, stay in Colorado Springs. I haven't interviewed for it yet. I interview for it tomorrow. I'm an excellent interviewer. I feel very good about this opportunity, and you never know what's around the corner if you don't try. So yeah, I'm feeling good about that.
I love that, Rob. Thanks for sharing. Congratulations on getting ready for that interview. And what a great example of having a positive mental attitude, right? I am great at interviewing. I am an expert at this. I mean, talk about laying the proper mindset. Good job, Rob. Anyone else?
I do. I finally got
Luis?
a gym for the tournament, and
Nice.
finally, yes. And dealing with the hotel right now that is literally half mile from it, so should be done by the end of the week.
All good things will come to fruition if you do the work, right, Luis? Good job,
Yep.
man. Yeah, good job. Luis has been working on that project for quite some time. Not that I've noticed any stress, Luis, but you got it done.
Uh, I'm sleeping less. Let me tell you that. I've been
I
sleeping
get
less.
you. I hear you. I hear you. And look, I got a win this week also, and it kind of falls into what we're going to be talking about in organized planning because everything we do, we should be doing for a purpose, and it should align with what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Those of you who know me know that my background, of course, I come from a military background, serving 22 years in the Marine Corps. What some of you may know, some of you may not know, I actually have 26 years as a real estate broker as well. And so my win this week comes from my real estate background. So several weeks ago, actually probably 2 months ago, I received an email from an agent who I had passed a referral to, wait for it, 8 years ago. So I had a woman and her husband in New Hampshire who were not my clients. I simply had met her in a gym. I was, Rob, you're a great interviewer. I'm a great networker. I shake hands and kiss babies. That's how I built my business. And so this woman I met, who actually coaches NFL players, she built her own coaching business. Uh, once said to me, she said, Frank, you are the best networker I have ever met. And if I ever need your services when it comes to real estate, I will be sure to give you a call. Well, by the time she called me, I had moved to Florida and was no longer serving New Hampshire. So I gave that referral to an agent who I trusted because of her professionalism and expertise. 8 years ago, I received a message a couple of months ago saying, Frank, that referral you gave me is finally ready to take action. And so because of something I did over 10 years ago, I received a nice sized referral check in the mail yesterday.
Wow.
So all the work that I did back then and saw no financial reward paid off because I did it the right way. I did it without expectation. I was just doing what I could do to build my business long term. And so I share that only because of this, guys. Oftentimes, we come into business. We're going to talk today about organized planning, doing all the things that we need to do to build our businesses properly. Oftentimes, we get stuck behind the I'm doing this and I want to see results now. Take that off the table. Forget about the results. Just simply do the work. You know, the question is, am I willing to pay the price? We see that oftentimes through all of the writings about from Napoleon Hill. You know, you have to identify what is it that you want and are you willing to pay the price without expectation of an immediate reward, right? So I wanted to share that with you guys. It was meaningful to me because two people, the agent that I gave the referral to benefited from that. The client who referred me as the greatest networker she had ever met held true to her comment. And she did use me to be connected with another agent to get the job done. They sold their house and they bought a new house. So it was a beautiful situation. So let's talk a little bit about organized planning. What was a big takeaway from the chapter on organized planning for anybody in the room? What really stuck with you as you read that chapter? By the way, the longest chapter in the book. Anybody have a takeaway? Go ahead, Phil.
There were so many rich and dense layers to get into. Actually, when Bob Proctor used to have a magnificent event called The Matrix, which was an 8-day thing, he would have you read that. They would have you read that chapter, like, you know, you had to read it at least twice through. They asked you to do that, you know. But the 5 points, really, I got leadership. This is where leadership is coming from. The other part is basically the mastermind, like we've got here. You know, the mastermind is that, and I think of Herb Brooks in the movie The Miracle. There's a time where they tied in the game, and he said, "You don't have what it takes to win on talent alone. It takes this hard work, right?" And the mastermind provides us the power to get it done. Um, he was so deep into the service brief, which we call now a resume. He was the first to really articulate the idea of writing a resume. Can you imagine if he took his, you know, his depth of taking a leather bound, you know, letter to go to every company you were looking for. But the idea of you positioning yourself as a service to the business, not looking to get a job and get a check. Very different mindset. And all of these things were so, I couldn't pick out one. There's just so deep. And so many of those are hitting me. And then the service economy. How do we grow ourselves and how do we increase our level of service every day? So those are just on the highlight, just a tip of the iceberg of really, I love this chapter and it's something to visit. Every business owner, every person, every organization should look at this chapter frequently, like we do in my friend Michael's weekly
Sales training.
I'm learning how to use some of that language too when it comes to capital. I've been making the conversation now where, you know, I'm saying to Banco, they say they message you or whatever, say, well, what are you, the key is what are you willing to not look in the back for? What are you willing to get a return on? That's the key. Not where am I in the past, because that's the past. We're looking at the future and the speculation. So what are you willing to do and how do we partner together to make that done? So that's how I'm approaching my capital campaign.
Yeah, you're actually building your personal capital, aren't you?
Well, personal, but also financial. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you're absolutely right. But I think the reason I said you're building personal capital is because you're building character by
Mhm.
doing the right things all the time, right? And if you build character and who's the person that you need to become to deserve the reward for the work that you're doing from the people that you're trying to serve, right?
Mm.
And I think that all of that falls into organized planning. One of the questions that really stuck out to me was if I looked at your calendar and at your bank statement, what would it tell me about your priorities? Those of us and everyone in the room has a business of some sort. And when we started our business, we had to create a plan. I mean, Hill talks about having a definite purpose. Okay, my purpose is to develop this business in XYZ. Great. What's your plan of action? And a lot of people create great plans. We've all met people who have great plans. But did they take action on the plans that they created? Are their daily actions aligned with what needs to be done for them to become the person they need to be to deserve the reward that they're working toward? So if I looked at your calendar, if you looked at your calendar and currently looked at your bank account, would they represent the person that you want to be as part of your organized plan in your business? Anyone else have any takeaways from that chapter?
For
I'd
me,
like
it
to
was
speak
the
to the
number 59.
The number
So
59.
yeah, because there's 31 elements that could pull you away from success, right? Not get you there. And there's 28 questions to ask yourself to basically polish and validate your character, right? And so those I had forgotten about that series of basically analysis, right? Those diagnostic questions and those diagnostic statements. And so working back through those, or at least reading them and then allowing that reading to sort of trigger a brainstorm session for myself, it was really interesting to see what popped out of there. And I just wanted to share one of my favorites here, which was number 20 in the, what does he call these again? These are called the major causes of failure. And funny, it's because there's 31 of them, not 30. But anyway, lack of concentration of effort. Number 20, the jack of all trades is seldom good at any. Concentrate all of your efforts on one definite chief aim. But I actually look at that even more deeply as going, concentrate your efforts on your specific zone of genius.
Yeah, Michael, I love it. 30 major causes of failure. Exactly right. And I'm looking at that list right now. And I'm going to say here to anybody in the room, anybody who's not in the room, maybe he's watching the replay, go back to this chapter and go to the book
Yeah.
and read those 30 major causes of failure.
I actually think most of us, almost everyone in the room, has wherever they're stubbing their toe right now, it's in those 30 statements or 30 questions.
Yeah.
Every single one, like everybody. Nobody gets away from them.
And I love the way he ends it. He ends that section, Michael. Only the first of these is outside the control of the individual. It can be remedied by supplementing one's ability through the Mastermind Alliance, right? So only the first one is out of our control. But what was that first one? Unfavorable hereditary background.
Yep.
So we can't change what we were born with. I mean, we got what we got. However, we can.
You didn't plant that seed.
Absolutely not, absolutely not. I won't take blame for that. But that's the only one that's out of our control. And even that is somewhat in our control by the people that we surround ourselves with, the Mastermind Alliance, right? So yeah, great list right there. And Michael, I think you brought up another great point. And it's something that I have recently restarted in my reading. Many of us just read books to read books. We read it, we complete it, we move on to the next one, whatever the next best thing is. I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly getting a notice from Amazon. One of my best authors has a new book coming out. Oh, I got to get the next new book. At the very beginning of Think and Grow Rich, Hill tells us how to study his works. And what he suggests is that we read one chapter every day for a week before we move on to the next chapter. And what he's sharing with us is something that repetitive, repetition over time. And I had stopped doing that. And I'm very thankful for those of you who don't have this copy of the book. I've got Think and Grow Rich in 10 minutes a day. I'm very thankful to have this. It sits in my briefcase everywhere I go. It allows me to, spend no more than 10 minutes to remind myself of what's in each chapter. So I highly recommend you can get a copy of this from Amazon. It's published by the foundation, and it's just a great resource to have for that. If you're like me, you show up 25, 30 minutes early for an appointment, you got an extra few minutes to get ready. Why not, plug in and read something that would be helpful? But read the same chapter every day for a week and see how your perception, how your understanding of the chapter changes. Organized planning creates a roadmap for us. You're writing out your goals. You break them into actionable steps. You review and adjust regularly. Do we review and adjust regularly, or do we just continue doing the same things that aren't working? I think a lot of times people get wrapped into, well, I created this plan. I spent hours, maybe weeks, maybe even months putting together this organized plan for success. I can't change it now. I put too much work into it. No, you need to change it if it's not working, right? It's not engraved in granite. So don't get stuck in that rut of saying, I can't change what I'm doing. This is the way it has to be done, right? Anyone else have any comment? Go ahead, Phil. I see your hand up.
Yeah, interesting you should say that too, because I think just recently I had come across a video where Tony Robbins was accidentally working through a crowd, and there was because I saw similar situations with me and some of the people I've been talking to, where this woman was completely focused and locked in on her one way of how to achieve the goal. The strategy, the plan. I've got a TV show. My TV show just needs the money. It's like, yeah, but you locked into the TV show as the one way. What is the real thing? Because it's not about the TV show. It's about what's in there behind you. And every person can answer that differently from what their perspective happens to be. But yeah, that's the thing is that, Bob Proctor would always say, we never change the goal. It's about changing the plan. Purpose, plan, and action, as we know, is the key. And be willing to change the plan. That's how much I've been noticing myself. I've been focused on, raising capital, for example, right? I've been locked in there. It's like, well, why can't you just give service to people and it's going to come back to you, right? Okay, I've learned to release, and so it's a thank you for reminding me kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And Phil, I think you brought up a great point in there too, is, and Bob Proctor did say, don't just because you didn't achieve the goal when you said you were going to, don't just give up on the goal. And the way I heard it was, if you didn't achieve the goal by the time that you wanted to achieve it, just extend the deadline. Just extend the deadline. Stay on track. If it was a worthy goal when you set it, just because you misjudged the time it was going to take to achieve it doesn't mean that you failed. And so many people give up at that point. I didn't achieve it by the time I said it. Well, I guess I'm a failure. No, just keep trying. Remember, Edison, 10,000 times trying to create the electric light bulb. I mean, he didn't give up. I'm sure he didn't achieve it in the time that he thought he was going to achieve it. Go ahead, Albert.
Yeah, so my epiphany came 2 weeks ago. I was meeting with a group called Cap Sherpa. Has anybody heard of them?
No.
And Phil, I know you're raising money. So this is for Phil and anyone else that is in the market for an investor to help them along on their journey. I gave Cap Sherpa to one of my business partners. His name is Juan Lacey. Juan has already expressed that he's going to be the universally known Black farmer with the biggest farm equity that you can possibly have. So he went to Cap Sherpa. They have a $999 commitment to get started. And that's all you pay unless you need to have some other forms put together to present to new investors. They reach out to investors, they sign you up with investors, and their fee is paid by the investors. I think this aligns with just about anyone that's trying to raise capital. So if you'd like information, I could send it to you. I won't take up any more time about Cap Sherpa, but Cap Sherpa has moved Juan Lacey from trying to get funding over the past 4 years to being inches away from starting his financial journey.
Yeah, I love it. Albert, is there any way you can put a link in the chat for those that are in attendance?
I don't know. My arms don't reach that far anymore.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. But okay, so
That's
Albert
it right
Brennan,
there, Michael. Thank you.
there you go. Michael's on the game. And by the way, Michael gave us a quote in the chat as well. Many are stubborn in pursuit of their actions, few in pursuit of their goals.
And I like
Interesting.
Phil's quote as well. Quitters never win. Winners never quit.
Winners never quit. Exactly right. I mean, they're all around us, right? We can come up with all these quotes about the most important thing, persistence. Just keep on keeping on, keep moving forward. And Albert, you brought up funding. Yeah, funding's important. We only have the two resources that are most important to business owners, time and money, right? And one of the things that I took away from this chapter is budget your time as if it were your money. People budget their money like crazy. Well, hopefully they do. Do they budget their time in the same way? And that goes back to that initial quote that I talked about. If I looked at your bank statement or I looked at your calendar, if I looked at your calendar, does it reflect your priorities? Are you budgeting your time to achieve the things that you want to achieve? Time, money, and energy, Luis put in there. Love it. Time, money, and energy. They're all resources. And by the way, money is probably the limited resource, the unlimited resource, because there's plenty of money out there. We can find more money if we go to the right places, do the right things, serve the right people. We can't make any more time. We can't make any more time. There are 24 hours in a day. And one of the questions that poses out to me is, what's the difference between two people with the same education, the same opportunity? One's an extraordinary success, and the other is barely paying the bills. What's the difference? Is it how they're using their time?
Focus.
Focus? Yeah. And whenever we say focus, the magnifying glass, as a little kid, the first experiment that we learned, right, with the sun, the magnifying glass, and a piece of paper, we could start fire just by creating focus of that energy. That same focus has the same power within us. What we focus on expands. You can have whatever you want, just focus on what you want. Luis, go ahead.
Meaning, whatever meaning we give to things.
Because everything that happens is just an event, and we specialize by putting the quality of that event.
We color it. Yep. We put the filters on it.
That's right. Exactly right. So meaning, what's the meaning? Luis, expand on that just a little bit. Why did you say meaning?
Right. Let's put it this way. You've seen this before. You have two kids, sons of an alcoholic. One becomes an alcoholic, another one means completely opposite, never touches a drop of alcohol, because that person knows what the suffering is and he doesn't want to go through that, don't want to put anybody around him like that. And the other one just gives, that's what my dad did. I'm just like my dad. So what is the meaning, right? You and I can experience the same thing, exactly the same thing, and we feel completely different. We can feel completely different. 9/11, I'm sure every single one of us has a different meaning. It meant something different. Like, I know in my case, I was still living in Mexico. I know I did not suffer, or I didn't see that tragedy as big, probably Michael either, as you guys did as an American citizens. I'm not saying we're not empathetic and we didn't feel bad, but we did not experience the same kind of pain, frustration, horror, whatever it was that you guys went through that. Right? So yeah, meaning, whatever meaning we give to things, that's usually what we're gonna do about it afterwards. If we don't care, we don't give a shit. Well, what am I gonna do about it? But when you care, and care usually means from the meaning that we give to things.
Luis, you bring up a great, and thank you for sharing that. You bring up a great point um, about experience. We can all experience the same thing, the same experience, see it from a different lens, different perspectives. And I think oftentimes when we see extremely successful people in business, all we see is the success. What we don't see is the failure that they experienced on the road to success, right? And I think it's really important to realize, especially in today's day of social media. I mean, all we're seeing are the highlights. Everybody's highlights are out there on social media. Nobody's putting up out there all of their failures, right? Very few people are putting them out there. Most people they don't even go on social media unless they're posting, oh, great winners, success, and blah. Well, what about all the things that they
Yeah.
didn't?
And they
What could we
post
learn
seven,
from that?
and they post seven different, they posting like the sixth or seventh picture they took of it.
Exactly. Exactly. I love. Go ahead, Michael.
I think what Lewis brought up is actually even fundamentally more important than the time, money, and energy thing, or the focus, money, energy element. Because as Shrek would put it, ogres are like onions, right? There's lots of layers to a human. And fundamentally, deep down inside, we all have an identity, right? And that identity is at the core of who we are. And it's influenced heavily, obviously, by our raising and our rearing. But that identity exists, and the beliefs shape in around as a layer of protecting and solidifying and making reality that identity, right? And then the beliefs, of course, come out to the stories that we tell ourselves about what Lewis is talking about, meaning, right? So at the core of that, you have identity, beliefs, and then narrative. After that is all the other shit. And so ultimately, if you were talking, Frank, about, you brought up that there's two different people, right? I call the story always the parables of Peter and Paul, right? So if Peter's doing things one way and Paul's doing them, right, they have the same situation, same client, same everything in front of them, and Paul is super successful and Peter keeps getting frustrated. Quite often it zeroes all the way down to what Lewis was talking about, which is their identity, right? And sometimes it comes down to really something very simple. One identifies as second place and one identifies as first place. And right, some people identify as the bridesmaid, as it were, right? And the never as the bride. Some people just identify as the loser and not the winner. And they're looking for some sort of outside validation of a different identity, when what all of these books talk about, all of them, are different sets of tools to attempt to drive all the way down to the core question of who are you? And so unless people are willing to pull out the scalpel, the magnifying glass, and go into their identity, their results will likely never really change. There'll be ups and there'll be downs, there'll be turbulence on the surface, but ultimately who they are doesn't shift.
So, Michael, I think that what you just brought to my mind is we all have an identity. And I think the question that's most important for us to answer if we want to change a situation is, who is it that I need to become?
That's right.
Because we can change our identities. Oftentimes we don't think we can because we didn't create it. No, but you can adjust it. You can change it.
Yeah, it
by
can shift.
identifying exactly, you can make that shift. I mean, I think it was Bob Proctor that called it a paradigm shift, right? You just change your mentality, change your paradigm. You don't have to stay the way you are. If you choose to be different, you can. But you have to identify who it is that you want to become, and then identify it, more importantly, what is it that you have to do to become that person?
And for me, Frank, that is ultimately what the strategic planning really hints at. And whether he's on purposefully hitting it on the nose or not, is that none of these plans will bear the fruit you're looking for unless you are the person, right, that executes the plan, or the person that the plan requires.
Yeah.
And you've got to, as I said, I hate fake it till you make it. I love be it till you are it. At some point, when you want to change your identity, You have to do it. If I want to become a gym rat, I've got to show up to the fucking gym and lift the weights. I can't say I'm a gym rat and never show up. Those two things don't cooperate, right? And so ultimately, you have to be the thing until you wake up one day till you are the thing. Therefore, your identity doesn't shift because you made a choice one time. Your identity shifts because you make the choice every 10 minutes to be that version of you.
Yeah, I love it. And Albert puts it in, the winner's mindset. I mean, there's so many ways that we can look at this from different perspectives, but the truth of the matter is you don't have to settle for who you are. You can change it and be whoever you want to be.
That's right.
Right? It's that simple. Now, I read a story here recently where a woman wanted to lose weight, and rather than focusing on losing weight, she chose to focus on what would a healthy person do. So every single day, her question had nothing to do with what she should eat or shouldn't eat. It had to do with what would a healthy person eat? What would a healthy person call a cab or take a walk? Right? I mean, it's the things that we do that create who we are. And we can change those things. If you spend 12 hours a day sitting on a couch watching television, you're probably not going to become the healthiest person in the world. Luis, I see your head nodding up, and I saw
Yeah,
your
real
hand go.
quick. Yes.
Go ahead.
In my affirmations, I used to say, I'm not eating junk food. And I changed it to say, I eat healthy food.
Yes.
Big difference. There
Big
was
difference.
a big difference. And one of the things that Michael says, I got this thing, now it's taking measurement of my sleep and all that. There's ring, there aura thing.
Yep.
Big difference. We cannot better something if we don't measure it.
Yeah, you have to measure it, right? Exactly. Rob had his hand up. Go for it, Rob.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great discussion. One of the things that comes to my mind, as I was going through this chapter and studying it, peeling back the onion with Claude and ChatGPT, is how can I set my kids up for success with being able to plan, being at an early age, being able to budget money, being able to respect money, save money, understand what credit means in their lives, not now, down the road. So all these things, I was thinking about, including my own life. But one of the things that you said, Luis, that was interesting was 9/11. So 9/11, I was in the military at the time. For most military people, it took them away from their families for the next 4 to 5 to 6 years, and even longer into today. But what that did for my kids, that set of kids, it destroyed our relationship. I was gone almost all their teenage lives. I just was not there. And still our relationship is strained. We communicate, but haven't seen them in years. But now, fast forward, I'm at this point where I have a new set of kids, 11 and 13. I've been part of their lives consistently their entire lives. And my identity right now is, being that dad for them and having a second chance. A lot of guys can't say they got a second chance. They have a set of kids, they're distanced, it's stressed, but I got a second chance. God, I say, God put me through hell to give me these two angels to put me here where I can just focus on enriching their lives and all the goodness that I'm learning, every day with Napoleon Hill, different things I'm reading. I'm not the guy on this job that's sitting there watching YouTube and Instagram, and I'm constantly plugging in and charging my brain, and it spills over into the father that I am, the dad that I want to be to these kids, because I just want them to be so successful, so happy. I know life's coming at them; it's going to come for all of us, but I just want them to be ready and prepared and have all the tools that they need. So it all comes full circle for me. This whole conversation.
Yeah, I love that, Robin. You're absolutely right. You know what? We all get second chances. We all get second chances. We all make mistakes, which means we always get a second chance because we can learn from that mistake. And that goes into Napoleon's lessons about learning from adversity and failure, right? I mean, when we recognize that we could have done something differently, we think we can then choose to take a different action moving forward. And what came to mind is this, this check that I was just talking about, for this referral check I just got this past week, my win for the week. My mind immediately went, a lot of people, the old Frank, the young Frank, the 21-year-old Frank would have grabbed that extra multiple thousands of dollars and go spend it on something, right? The 70-year-old Frank, the first question is, okay, where can I put 10% of that money towards savings into my future, right? So it's just a changing of a mindset, and we can change our mindset. We can, as a matter of fact, it's the only thing that we have complete control over is our minds if we simply choose to take advantage of it. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, really loving how this is all showing up, and yeah, like you're saying, Rob, too, we can always create that identity of who we're going to be, and then we learn lessons. Like when I went through my adversity of, I got a personal divorce, I got a business divorce, so it doesn't mean I'm can't be a partner in a business. It doesn't mean I can't be a partner in life. It just means I had to learn my lessons. Who am I being? We've asked that question earlier today. What is my identity? Who am I? And it's not what I do. That's a superficial level. That's just a surface, and I think as you look at the surface level, go beyond that. We're talking about budgeting time and money too. The outdated concept of we have one source, of income and one source of collaborative ventures or one source of serving. Like there's multiple ways we can serve. It's just a matter of getting one plate spinning first. Then we have to get the second plate, and then we have those things growing together. We can't do it all at once, but we can do all of it with the right team. I think one of the failures of leadership shows that someone who is about the ego, they're narcissistic, or they're concerned about the title or what their authorities to do, and they just love telling people what to do. That's where so many people get stuck in the middle, and that's why a lot of people don't like certain big organizations, because the people in the middle are stuck with the power instead of really rewarding the right people and doing in the right position. What is their identity? And so it's happening in workforce, it's happening in our relationships, in our families. We have multiple families now, right? There's people who I've seen who have had multiple divorces within the family. So there's like 5 blended families come together as one. Even better than those who, like, here was the mother and father, the grandfather, grandparents, great grand, they're all together and they aren't a healthy, cohesive, unit type of thing. But in the sense of how we look at things, perspective is key. So
Yeah.
without going too much deeper, I'm inspired to go a lot deeper in things. We could talk about this for a month. We really could.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's a deep chapter and it deserves a reread. It may even deserve another session next week, right? Because there's so many different directions that we can take this. Albert, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to what Luis said, and now what Phil also added. Um, the thoughts in your head create your reality. And what Luis was talking about with his affirmations were he didn't change who he was, but he changed the way he looked at what he wanted to become. And it fit him much better to be on a positive spin than on the negative drift that he had started in his um, affirmations.
Yeah, I love it, Albert. What a great highlight. The way we look at things, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
And
Right? If you
Bob Proctor was a big proponent about that. When you have a situation and you haven't been able to solve it, sit in a different seat at the table and become someone else to look at it from a different viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Just jump on the other side of the table. I mean, I learned that in sales, right? You want to serve, jump on the other side of the table. And how would you like to be served? It's not brain science. Well, maybe it is brain science. But at the end of the day, it's looking at things from a different perspective. Thank you.
It
Go
is
ahead, Michael.
absolutely.
So, um, getting back to the strategic planning thing, for me, I think one of the traps that what happens when people are planning, especially when we're at the early stages of a business, is that we plan for everything and everyone. We plan for contingency ideas. We plan for what happens if this happens. We plan for what type of people we want to attract. And so when I'm coaching a company, when I'm coaching a business, I used to call it the rule of one, but now I call it the one law. And it essentially comes down to one character, not multiple characters. If your ideal client, okay, if your dream client was a character in a show, they're a single character. If they're Rob McCaslin in the show, they're just Rob. They're not also Frank, and they're not also Albert, and they're not also Phil, and they're not also Luis, or whoever else is watching. They're
Oh,
just
say it
Bob,
not so.
right? But we, in our marketing, you guys, and in our business planning, we tend to want to sell to anyone and everyone that shows up. And I'm telling you guys right now, that will break every shin you have as you stride forward, right? One law, one character. Who are you actually wanting to sell to? Right? Who are you wanting to serve? And that becomes the pivot point of your strategic plan, the focal point of the plan. Who am I serving? Right? What is the one problem, one person, one problem that I solve, that my service solves, that my brain, my product solves? What's the one solution that I offer them? What's the one offer I make them? What's the one promise I give to them? And what's the one story that they walk? Right? And so when you're
that one segment, Michael, that you just said needs to be repeated multiple times over. So everybody who's watching the replay, go back and listen to this section.
yeah, so I call it the law of one, or the one law. Like there's no, you can't, if anything you're writing, if you guys are writing email, you're writing a post, you're writing anything, who is the one character that you're talking to? Right? When you're planning out, okay, this is my strategic plan. We want to reach X dollars in revenue or whatever it is on an annual basis. But who's the one fucking person that actually wants to buy what you're offering? Because right now you guys are thinking, or not you guys, it's accusatory, but we tend to think about what we want to accomplish with our plan. But somebody has to buy it. And so when you're in strategic planning for business, it's different for personal life. But when it comes to business, the character you serve is paramount. They have to be the focal point, right? When you look at brands like Gucci, or you look at Ferrari, both Italian, or if you look at any of these like a Rolex or anything, they are very specific as to the character they serve at the top of their hierarchy map. And everything they do in their business is laser focused on how do we manifest that version? How do we turn Frank into a Rolex guy? What do we need to do to make that happen? Who do we need to associate with? What's our brand telling to Frank? That's their plan. And they work backwards from manufacturing Franks. How do we manufacture more Franks? Because we need to sell more Rolexes. Not how do we sell more Rolexes. That's the byproduct of manufacturing Frank. There's another t-shirt, manufacturing Frank.
Yeah, well, Michael, you just scared everybody in the room and coming in the room for the replay. Nobody wants more Franks. Okay, just saying. All right. Go ahead, Rob. I see your hand up, my friend.
I love going to the ball game. They serve Franks there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Big ones.
Michael, man, I love listening to you talk about sales. I still have the notes from that free session that you gave. I actually expanded on them. Just asked Claude and ChatGPT to blow that up out of the water. So I have a whole playbook off of just what you said, in that free session. But it just comes full circle again because I had this interview for the job tomorrow, and it's actually a startup. So the company is a defense company. They do drones, missiles, everything, military stuff, but they're splintering off into hospitality. So they're wanting me to start up this team, start to build the team, do this, do that. It's software based, but the one of the things that it says at the top of the job description is bring order to ambiguity. And what that means to me is, don't show me the lane, give me the end state. I'll take care of the lane. Let me know where you want to go. So and then having these conversations that we're having about business and sales, and I think it's great, and I know it's going to help in the interview. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome, Rob. And Michael and I both had the same reaction when you talked about where they were coming from and where they're going. It's like, what? How does that even come together?
All right.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah, exactly right. And by the way, I want to bring attention to Luis's shirt because I saw him stand up and it says very clearly, average sucks. So everybody just stop being average. It's not a passing grade. Average sucks. All right. I got a couple of things I just want to toss out there as we start to wrap things up for today. Just talking about time and money, budgeting time and money are the things that we do every day, focused on aligning with what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And I just want to throw 4 questions out there that might be helpful to anybody listening to this replay. where are you wasting the most time? Ask yourself these questions. Where are you wasting the most time as we speak? What one change would create the biggest improvement in your schedule? Take a look at your schedule. What one change could make the biggest improvement? Thirdly, what expense this past month reflected your highest priority? One of the things that, we can tell where your priorities are by where you spend your money, right? And what is one goal that needs an organized plan this week? What one goal is out there that you've probably said to yourself, I really want to accomplish this. Well, okay, that's great. Have you created a plan for that accomplishment? Have you organized your time and your budget to be able to support that goal? So again, the 4 questions: where are you wasting the most time? What one change could you make in your calendar to create the biggest improvement? What expense this month reflected your highest priority? And what is the one goal that needs an organized plan this week? Right. So once again, as we wrap up today, we're going to ask ourselves, are we just being entertained by these weekly meetings, or are we going to implement the actions that we're learning, implement the skills that we're learning? There's so many good things that come out of this. Michael, I always appreciate everything that you give us. It's your knowledge and expertise when it comes to sales and organizing efforts in business really is suited for what we talk about, especially here today in organized planning. So anyone have any final comments they'd like to share? Anything that really stood out from today's session?
Can I add a 5th question?
Absolutely.
When was the moment you realized you needed to do this?
Wow. When was the moment that you realized that you needed to do this? Just as you said that, Michael, I'm saying to myself, how many times a day do we have that thought come to mind? I need to do this.
Yeah. So when was the moment?
Yeah.
So each and every one of us, like whatever it is that's our destination. I've added another law of 1, by the way. Thank you, Rob, for what you said, because 1 destination has been added to the laws. So now there's 7 laws in the 1 law. That's funny.
It's a primary law. And
That's right. It's a
secondary
primary
law.
law. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It has layers.
Here we go.
Like
We got it. We understand.
So yeah, what was the moment you realized this was something you needed to do?
Yeah.
Guys, in your we need to all answer that question, and so do your clients. When they're on the other side, that's another one of my key questions or statements, right? When was the moment? Because visually, we want to take you, we want you to go back. When was that moment? I was sitting in my car doing this. I was, at the dinner table realizing I needed to change my finances, right? I was, sitting on the beach reflecting, or I was, mopping this floor of this stupid ass fucking job that I've got and hating every minute of it. And I'm like, I can't tolerate this any longer.
Yeah.
When was the moment?
Yeah. I mean, when you first threw that question out there, Michael, I said, okay, that's a great question. But then as I sit here and think about all the different times where we realize in our lives, we need to do something.
Yeah.
Whether it's work, health, family, relationships, business, whatever it is, and I love it. So when did you decide that enough was enough? I need to make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great question.
I remember when Gary shared that a couple of years ago in New York. He was changing that sewer system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's happened to every one of us.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think, there's one question, I think further, one question after that, Michael, for those who had that moment and then didn't do it. And the question has to be, well, why didn't I take action?
I think an even more powerful question too, Frank, is, so have you done it yet? And you say to yourself, or they say to you, no, I haven't. So what's the consequence of that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could spend an whole hour just on
Right.
those questions, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like,
Powerful.
because the pain makes the movement. Pain makes movement, right?
Hey, Frank,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit selfish here because I know you want to grow the group. But man, I like this group. I like the size of it. I like the amount of information that comes out of each guy. Because the larger the group, the less that gets said. And I'm like, no, I know you want to grow it, but no, I just like the size and I like the
You,
output.
you know what, Rob? I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you just said. But when I say grow the group, Let's change that to grow the impact of the group, right? Because every one of us, I think I've shared this law before. It's called the law of 250. And I learned the law of 250 in a book called How to Sell Anything to Anyone by Joe Girard. Guinness Book of World Records, #1 salesman in the world, I think for like 11 or 12 years. Each one of us has a group of people that surround us equal to a number of roughly 250 people. So when we walk away from this group, this meeting, right now, I think we have 6 or 7 people in the room. The ripple effect of what we walk away from this helps us to grow, not necessarily the group, but the impact of the group. What we talk about here are foundational principles. It's a philosophy. Well, take the philosophy, talk to somebody else today about this thing that you talked about or that you learned or that you were exposed to or reminded of during the 1 hour that we spend together every Tuesday morning. So growth doesn't exponentially mean that I need to have 35 people in every weekly session. No, I want people in the session that are going to take something from it and share it with other people. So when I talk about growth, I talk about sharing and expanding the knowledge, expanding the philosophy, whether it be Michael's philosophy, Luis's interpretation of the philosophy, or yes, even Phil Conway. I mean, come on. We all take away stuff here. Let's just share it with the people, right? Rob,
Ambassadors of the mastermind.
I approve that definition of a mastermind. Thank you, mic drop. We're done. All right, guys, thanks a lot. And look, I'm going to suggest, no, I'm not going to suggest, I'm going to commit to the fact that next week we are going to continue to talk about organized planning, budgeting time and money, because I think it's the longest chapter in the book, probably needs to at least a double session. Okay.
For a reason.
See you guys next week. Actually, talk to you later, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, y'all.